Welcome to the Mandatory. Thanks so much for rocking with us. If you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO. We're also on the audio side. So, wherever you stream any of your shows, you can find us there as well. If you have some time, leave a rate and review. But most importantly, thank you so much for rocking with us. We got lots to get into in this episode. But nonetheless, Bryan, let's start off with the biggest news because everyone was kind of wondering what Canelo Alvarez was going to do next. He sat down and talked to a network and said he will be returning for Cinco de Mayo weekend, but his opponents, we're not quite sure who they are. He kind of X'd out Jaime Munguia and also David Benavidez, but who should Canelo Alvarez fight Cinco de Mayo weekend with those two big names out? And the fact that everyone wanted to see him fight David Benavidez.
David Benavidez, who we're going to get to in a second. Very, very disappointing that we're not going to get that. I mean, we honestly didn't expect, or at least I didn't expect him to fight David Benavidez in May. I was thinking maybe in September, which, maybe that's still a thing that can happen at some point. It'll be unfortunate if these two don't fight because I think that's one of the best 3 to 5 fights you can make in boxing right now is Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez. I could make a case for it being number one after maybe Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. I could make the case if I wanted to. Canelo Alvarez hasn't fought a Mexican in a while.
He said he wouldn't. He didn't want to fight other Mexicans. So
the last one was Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in 2017, and let's be honest, motherfuckers don't like that dude. Like he's in a different sort of class. And then before that, you got to go all the way to Alfredo Angulo, which is now 10 years ago, which underrated fight looking back on it. Very fun fight. Shout out to Alfredo Angulo, was a very fun fighter. In terms of who Canelo Alvarez should fight, will fight, whatever, I would still, if we're doing this from the betting perspective, which we do on this show because we talk about betting a lot, and we will today, I'm probably setting the odds at Jermall Charlo being the favorite at this point, Chantel. I think because, there was all that talk about Canelo Alvarez fighting both Charlos. He already beat Jermall. Like, Jermall Charlo is probably the favorite to me. And then I sort of work my way from there. What do you think? Like, who are the names that sort of stand out to you now? Because we can kind of X off David Benavidez for the time being for reasons that we'll get to. Spoiler alert, moving up in weight. And then we also have Jaime Munguia, who's probably not going to get this shot.
he kind of X'd out Jaime Munguia already.
And Edgar Berlanga is fighting this weekend. That's going to be a quick turnaround. So I don't think it's going to be him in May. So, I mean, where do you sort of look here? Is it going to be David Morrell? No, I think it's going to probably be Jermall Charlo.
I think we all kind of know it's going to be Jermall Charlo because that was supposed to be the fight that was initially supposed to happen. Mel stepped in, moved up 2 weight classes. So I think for sure, if we're going to be placing bets, which sometimes we do here on the Mandatory, that's where I'd place my money on as well. But also one name that wasn't mentioned, and I don't think this is the fight that's going to happen Cinco de Mayo weekend, but just because it could possibly Terrence Bud Crawford, right? That's a name that we have to mention that could possibly happen. And I don't believe that will happen Cinco de Mayo weekend, but it's such a big weekend. You never know. Bud hasn't been signed up for a fight yet. We haven't heard anything. We know he's not going to be fighting Spence. So it is a possibility, but I think Maul is probably the best name out there. Edgar Berlanga. I mean, there's still time for him to get ready for a fight if he wants it against Canelo Alvarez. I think that's a name that we can put up there. But nonetheless, this is not the name that we wanted to see, David Benavidez. But I think the two names where I'm like, maybe that could happen this year is Jermall Charlo and possibly Terrence Bud Crawford later in the year. Those are two of the names. Who should Canelo fight? I think he should fight Maul. I wouldn't be mad at that fight. Right? You take care of both Charlo brothers. At one point, a lot of people said he was ducking the Charlo brothers. If Canelo takes them both out and then fights Bud Crawford, hey, that's a great storyline for his career, right? That looks great on the resume. And apparently there was also a rumor that PBC and Al Heyman offered Canelo Alvarez up to $55 million to fight David Benavidez. If I'm not mistaken, I read that somewhere. And Canelo Alvarez is not going to take that fight. We are going to move over to David Benavidez in just a moment. But Bryan, are you intrigued by either of those fights for Canelo Alvarez at this point?
Jamal Charlo and who? Who was the other one?
Terrence Bud Crawford.
Terrence Crawford. Like I like Canelo Alvarez said. The weight disparity is something I've been talking about for a while. Like
They
I'll
would
watch
have
the
to meet. It would be. I think it would. They would have to meet halfway at 160, or there'd be a catch weight 163 ish or something. And I don't think Bud would care. But I don't think Canelo's coming any further down than that, and I don't think Bud's going any further than that as well. So it
just
happens.
just give me Jamal Charlo for lack of better options.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the weight class right now. You have David Morrell, who's an interesting one. I could kind of see him sneaky getting this opportunity. Like I wouldn't set it as a favorite. It'd probably be plus 320 to me. Jamal Charlo might be even money at this point, minus 110, maybe even minus 200. Like you might have to
Yeah.
be like, hey, it's Jamal or bust at this point. I think David Morrell is a sneaky sort of guy that you could look at here. I don't think he's gonna fight Edgar Berlanga because Edgar Berlanga is about to fight now. He's not going to fight Demetrius Andrade or Andrade, as he is called by people. Chris Eubank Jr. Would
Yeah,
that
that's a
interest you?
possibility. Yeah, that's a possibility. That's a name that I saw being thrown around on Twitter.
I'd like that. I'd like that.
I don't think I'd care for that fight, to be quite honest with you. I don't think I'd care for that fight at all. I'd rather see him fight Conor Benn.
No, I'd rather see him fight Chris Eubank Jr. I'm
No,
more.
not Canelo. I'd rather see Chris Eubank
Oh,
Jr. fight fucking Conor
oh,
Benn.
okay.
You
Oh,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, that's
I'd
true.
rather
I
see
mean,
I'd rather see that fight because that's a fight that was brewing for a minute at
to
one point.
me, David Morrell is probably the best of all these guys we're talking about, other than maybe Jamal Charlo.
Underrated because he's still really young,
Yeah, he
right?
still has to young in
So
his career.
yeah,
I don't think he's that young in age
but
relative to like where you would project given his fight experience. But he had a long, decorated amateur career, as a lot of these Cuban savants do. They're exceptional. But I think Chris Eubank Jr. from an intrigue standpoint, like in terms of somebody who's going to sell a Canelo fight, who's going to do it better than him on this short notice other than Terrence Crawford, if we're calling it short notice? Like, I think there's a real case. Like, I actually like the Chris Eubank Jr. idea. I don't know if that's something that's going to be pursued. We're just sort of spitballing here. And another sneaky option that I would sort of theorize, and we're just fantasy booking here. Like, I'm not reporting any of this. Janibek, what is he doing now?
nothing, and he's not going to because he hasn't done anything yet, and I highly doubt he's going to fight Canelo Alvarez. And this is a deal with PBC, so which is also a reason why I think Terrence Bud Crawford could be perfect to fight Canelo at this point because remember the fight with him and Spence was a PBC card. Showtime, whatever.
No, no, you're right. But
Right?
look,
So this is
this is why Jamal Charlo is also probably the betting favorite in the house. So
and Canelo said he would take care of both Charlos at one point when he was essentially setting up those fights. So most likely we are going to see Jamal Charlo take on Canelo Alvarez, who Jamal, had a layoff, came back, and he looked really good in his last fight. And despite that layoff, so I think this could be a great fight for Jamal, a big money maker for him. Hopefully he has a better performance than his brother did, because I know some people thought that wasn't the most exciting fight for Mel. Didn't really throw like how he was supposed to, didn't really use his power like how he was supposed to. So Canelo Alvarez, not afraid to fight anyone, especially if he takes on Bud Crawford. Here at The Mandatory, we want to know who you think Canelo Alvarez should fight on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Let us know, drop some comments below, and of course, give us some names if we haven't mentioned them as well.